Luis Angel Acuna must be on the Mets opening day roster. Anthony DeComo put out his projected Mets opening day roster, and the likes of Donovan Walton were on it, and I'm sorry that can't happen. I'm sick and tired of hearing people say, put this guy on the roster so that kid can play every day in AAA. Luis Angel Acuna is ready. He will give the Mets a spark, and I want it here from day one. I don't want no Zach Short, Joey Wendell's, 27th man of the roster on the Pittsburgh Pirates. I don't want him on the New York Mets. You're talking about a championship caliber team from the start, and that should mean Luis Angel Acuna is on it. I do not want to hear about these minor league player backup infielders as part of the Mets. I want 1 through 26 being big leaguers, and Luis Angel Acuna is a big leaguer. And this is a big league show talking about the New York Mets. It's called Mets Daily. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Share it with your Mets fan family and friends. Smash that thumbs up. Every thumbs up helps. Share. Smash that thumbs up. Comment below. Do you agree with Anthony DeComo, who does a good job covering the team? But let's be real. Donovan Walton, who you've never heard of, I've never heard of, should not be on the Mets opening day roster. And it's very early. It's February. I'm not going to hate on him for saying it. But Acuna should be here. He doesn't need the reps in AAA, and he will get his at-bats. If he proves it in spring, he will get his chance in the regular season. He'll play against lefties, like I talked about yesterday. If he outplays, Jeff McNeil, will play over McNeil. He finally played at third base today in spring, so I was shocked that he had never played third, but it's pretty easy to move from second to third. He's agile. He's athletic. He'll be able to play shortstop if anything were to happen to Lindor. If it's a blowout, give Lindor some late innings off. Acuna will be a valuable piece. Donovan Walton will not. Let's start with a guy I talked about yesterday in Starling Marte. And, I gave out this trade, and a couple of people called me an idiot or you're dumb, but I was just going by financials. The Marlins need to add $25 million to avoid a grievance. Getting Starling Marte's 21 would make a lot of sense for them. Might not make sense for a team to add Starling Marte if he's not 100%. Starling Marte apparently is going to begin live BP, not even games in March. Now, March sounds crazy, but remember, that is 3 days away. That is on Saturday, 28th February. It's not a leap year. So we're a couple of days away from Marte playing live BP. But, Carlos Mendoza said he has some good days, some not so good days, as he deals with knee soreness since last summer. I mean, how is this still a thing? I get he's 36 years old, but my goodness, knee soreness still going on for Starling Marte, for a guy that if he's on the Mets, they expect him to be a part-time player playing against left-handed pitchers and maybe being a pinch runner. Well, if he's got knee soreness, you may never want him in the outfield, and you may never want him pinch running. You may just want him to hit 4 or 5 times in a game against left-hand pitching, and if they bring in a righty, you send Jesse Winker up there. So that's concerning if he's still got knee soreness going on. And 36-year-old Starling Marte might be tougher to trade that deal. It already was tough, and I was looking at a situation where the Marlins were in dire need to add money. I don't think anyone that doesn't need to add money is going to want a player that, can't stand on his 2 legs for too long. So that's a little bit of a concern early on in spring for the New York Mets. Daniel Nunez, another concern that the Mets don't expect him to play in spring training games anytime soon. I think this is just the Mets being cautious. He had the flexor issues last year. Daniel Nunez was a revelation for this Mets bullpen last year. Remember, this guy in 25 games, he threw 35 innings, struck out 48. He had a 2.31 ERA. He had a .91 whip. This guy was a stud out of the bullpen and then, dealt with injuries. But Daniel Nunez is not a dark horse option, which I want to get into. He is a legit option for the middle relief of this bullpen. And why the Mets are confident in their bullpen is Jose Budo, Daniel Nunez. We know about A.J. Minter. We know about Edwin Diaz. We know about some of the other guys. But a lot of people don't mention Daniel Nunez. He is a big part of this pen. And I get the Mets being smart here. Believe me, with what they've seen from these injuries early on, they should be as smart as possible and not rush guys to throw, especially relievers who are only throwing 1 innings every couple days. So be smart with Daniel Nunez, but man, don't forget about him. And don't forget about some of these dark horse options. I'll always remember dark horse. I would always throw the paper towel against the wall when the Juicy J verse came on when I was at Hofstra at Bar Social. Shout out to Bar Social. That replaced Bogarts, which was Wayne Corbett's bar. And when that verse came on Wing Night Wednesdays, shout out to all my Hofstra people. You remember the paper towel was going against the local wall. Well, speaking of dark horse, so off that tangent I just went on, if you know that song, you know what I'm talking about when that verse hits. It's pretty epic in the Katy Perry song, Dark Horse. Well, the Mets have some dark horses. Max Kranick is a very interesting piece. This is a guy who has not pitched in a major league game since 2022, in a regular season game, where he threw, 5 innings, 2 games for the Pittsburgh Pirates, gave up no runs. Since 2022, he was on the Mets playoff roster in Milwaukee. Max Kranick, a guy, doesn't pitch for a major league team in a game since 2022 on a playoff roster. I mean, that is pretty incredible for Max Kranick. And, he's got high hopes. He pitched well so far in spring. It's very early in a couple innings, but Max Kranick is a guy that has a chance to crack the opening day roster and was on a playoff roster without having pitched in the big leagues. That is an insane stat. Tyler Zuber, shout out to Tim Healy, one of my favorite Mets reporters, really good dude as well. Wrote a story about Tim Healy, a guy him and his wife adopted a duck at one point, and he played for the Long Island Ducks last year and kind of, reinvigorated his love for the game. Also liked some of my tweets and is pretty active on Twitter. 6 games for the Ducks last year, a 1.59 ERA. And I love when Ducks opportunities, in a sport, baseball, Ducks, Long Island Ducks, Ducks on the pond, lead to major league opportunities. And that was big for Tyler Zuber. And it was also big in the majors where he only pitched 2 games. But this is a guy that is adding to his arsenal and has some nasty stuff and has been working in the pitching lab and is a name to keep, an eye and an ear on for the New York Mets. Anthony Gose. He's Goose Gossage. Anthony Gose has started off spring pretty good, a lefty, and that's him on the right. And notice he's jacked, and you're probably thinking to himself, wow, that is really jacked for a pitcher. Well, Anthony Gose started in 2012 in the big leagues as an outfielder. And you want to know another fun fact about Anthony Gose? And it's Goose. I don't know. Goosage. Anthony Gose once led all of minor league baseball with 76 stolen bases in 2009. How about that? A guy who had 76 stolen bases, has 12 career homers, has, guess what, 69 career RBIs, very nice, has 57 career stolen bases in the big leagues. And, he ended up becoming a pitcher. And I think it could work wonders for him. I'm very excited to see Anthony Gose, the pitcher now. And that picture is from today. This guy is jacked. And listen, he has not had all the success in the world last season. He didn't have all the success in 2022, 2021, 6 2/3. He had a 1.35 ERA all 3 years with Cleveland and the Guardians. But this is a guy that's reinvented himself, and that is a cool story, and it's a lefty, and the Mets don't have many lefties, so he's a name to keep an eye on. Genesis Cabrera is another name to keep an eye on. He's got some nasty stuff, and mind you, he had 2 really good years for the Blue Jays. Last year, a 3.59 ERA with the Blue Jays. 2023, a 2.66 ERA in the for the Blue Jays. This is a guy no one's talking about. When you talk about a second lefty in the bullpen, there's Danny Young is probably the second lefty, but if there's a third lefty. This is a guy, listen, this is 62 2/3 last year. It wasn't a small sample size. And 23 2/3 in 2023 at a 2.66 ERA. He's got a career 3.89 ERA. Genesis Cabrera is a name you should be keeping an eye and ear on as well. Huascar Brazoban has a chance to make the Major League roster. You remember his name because the Mets traded for him. He didn't do a lot when the Mets got him. But remember, the Mets acquired him for a reason. He was incredible for the Marlins last year. 2.93 ERA over 30 2/3 innings. And remind you this, he had the lowest hard hit rate in Major League Baseball among pitchers who qualified last year. So Huascar Brazoban has looked good so far in spring. He's another name to keep an eye on. I don't think anyone's really talking about him in the bullpen. He could be a part of that bullpen as well. And, I'm getting good with these puns. I did work 5 years at the New York Post. No sleep till bullpen. I got another good pun coming for you right here, and that's Blackburn, baby, burn, burn, baby, burn, disco inferno. Paul Blackburn coming off that spinal fluid leak surgery like we talked about. We need a doctor on this podcast to describe that. Blackburn, baby, burn is going to need to burn a lot of innings for the New York Mets. He tossed 1 inning, good sign. I think you want to progress him. Next start, go 2, then go 3, eventually get to 4 and 5 before opening day. Because, listen, this guy's probably a part of the Mets opening day roster. With the 2 injuries we've talked about with Sean Manaea with Frankie Montas out, he may have to play a part. And injuries have been a key theme to Paul Blackburn's career, and the Mets are going to need that to change. Look at the timeline of his career. This is an unfortunate series of events for Paul Blackburn, baby Burn. 2017, struck on the hand by a line drive. Did not pitch again in August. 2018 began the year on the then called DL until they said DL was not, appropriate. And now it's IL. And then he ended up on the DL again. 2019, only 4 games. 2020, only 1 game in that pandemic shortened year. 2021, only 9 starts. 2022, his best year of his career. He made the American League All-Star team. Each team needed a representative, so he was the only A's representative. Career high 21 starts, 4.22 ERA. If they can get that out of Paul Blackburn, that is what they signed him for, that $4.05 million at 31 years old. That's what they would love. 4.22 for a 5th or 6th starter is tremendous. So they're hoping for 2022 Paul Blackburn. 2023, he had a career high 104 strikeouts, not a strikeout guy in 20 starts. But again, started the season on the IL for 2 months. And then last year, plagued by injuries once again. On the IL from May 13th to July 26th. Mind you, he had an A's record in terms of scoreless innings to start the season. I believe it was like 17 or something like that. Started the year great, then got hurt. Ended up coming off the IL when he was traded to the Mets. Had a few starts against his old team and former AL West teams, then got hurt again in August. And then he had that off-season spinal fluid leak surgery. So Paul Blackburn, a lot of injuries in his career. Man, if he could get back on that hill and be part of this Mets rotation, they're going to need him because there'll be more injuries, and he'll probably have a few injuries himself this year. But, at least at the start of the year, April, you would love him on the mound. I'm Jake Brown, at Jake Brown Radio. You could subscribe to my YouTube. You can follow me on all social media, at Jake Brown Radio. You could smash that thumbs up on this video, Mets Daily. You could comment below. We're not going to do the mailbag today. We had a couple comments, but not very good ones, so do better on the comments. Give me some good comments, some good feedback, some good questions. What do you think about Paul Blackburn? Do you think he could come back from this surgery and be a key player? He talked about the nerves he dealt with going back out there and coming off the surgery. This is a guy that's probably dealt with nerves because he's dealt with all kinds of injuries. So hopefully that's not in the back of his mind going out there as a pitcher for the New York Mets this year. And tomorrow, it is a Thursday. We have a guest, Ashley Wenkoski, and we're going to say her name right. Last name is very hard. She co-hosts the Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. They're crushing it. So shout out to Ashley. She will join our show tomorrow. Hello, Dia, as Mike Francesa would say. We'll have Ashley on Mets Daily tomorrow. So we'll be looking forward to seeing you tomorrow on, what's the date? Thursday, February 27th. And we're looking forward to the Knicks cooking the Philadelphia 76ers tonight. All is okay in Knicks land. Just breathe, Knicks fans. And just breathe, Mets fans. We'll see you tomorrow on Mets Daily. Thanks for watching.